Hey guys, I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to get these Vietnam War notes to you and get them up, but we'll go through the first part together. And you can print off the blank slides off of my website, or if you're in safe, Mr. Hendricks will get them to you. So the Vietnam War, following part of our policy of containment is basically how we get involved in this conflict. Up until the current war that we're in right now, this was the longest war in U.S. history. The war we're in right now started in 2001. Technically, it was declared over by President Bush in 2007, 2006-ish, but we still have troops there, and most people consider it an active front, so still going on. 57,000 Americans killed, 4 million Vietnamese killed. A lot of that has to do with the way that the North Vietnamese fought, the high number. This is the first living room war, and you probably want to write that somewhere over here in the margins. And what do you think a living room war is? Yep, one that you is broadcast into your living room, right? They weren't actually fighting in your living room, excuse me. But this was broadcast on the news every night. So when you ate dinner with your family, you would see what was going on the actual battlefield. There were journalists that were embedded with them, with photographers, with cameramen. So because they could see the war, they really started to question. I mean, war's horrific. It's not something you want to watch on TV normally. And people are like, what are we actually doing there? So why did we get involved? The first one is to prevent the spread of communism, which has been our aim since the end of World War II, following the policy of containment and the Truman Doctrine and the Eisenhower Doctrine. We also want to stop the spread of communism from the North to South Vietnam. Very, very similar to the Korean War. There are 3 presidents that are in office during this time period: JFK, LBJ, and Nixon. That's an essential vocab. It's kind of unique because you usually don't have that many presidents in charge during conflict. Working with 2 presidents, George W. Bush and President Obama, for the current conflict. So you should remember the Truman Doctrine, right? Truman said, we'll do whatever we have to do to stop the spread of the spread of communism against for struggling countries. So if you're trying to fight off communism, we're going to help you out, specifically towards the area of Asia. And that's how we get involved in the Korean War. So we're going to follow the Truman Doctrine. And the Korean War was so easy, we say Vietnam will be easy, right? It'll be nothing. We didn't have a problem with that before. Now, Eisenhower, he wasn't one of those 3 presidents that I just told you about that was president during the Vietnam War, but this is something that's building up over time. So when he's in office, he develops this idea of a domino theory. And if you line up a set of dominoes and you knock one down, what happens to all the rest? They fall down, right, if you've set them upright. So what he's worried about, if we let Vietnam fall, and Vietnam's not that valuable to us as Americans, if we let Vietnam fall, then other countries are also going to fall to communism. So we have to stop Vietnam from falling to communism, or we're going to have a huge, huge mess on our hands. It would be easy to just kind of appease Ho Chi Minh and say, just take South Vietnam. It's not really that important to us. A little bit of background about Vietnam and how it gets to this point. In the 1800s, the French are prancing around the globe like the British and the Spanish, and they're trying to gain territories, right? Because it's cool to take over weaker nations, be imperialistic. And they take Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and South Vietnam. And so the French are controlling Vietnam. Enter this dude, right? Not Mr. Miyagi, but Ho Chi Minh. And Ho Chi Minh was an anti-French activist, and he believed that Vietnam should be free. And typically, when a country wants to be free of its whoever owns it, the United States supports them. So he leaves Vietnam, he travels the world, studies different forms of government, and he decides to go to the West, so North America and Europe, all who have pretty much democracy, and seeks their help to help him become free. The United States turns him down, right? Because they're owned by France, and France has been our ally pretty much since the American Revolution. We're not going to go against one of our allies. So, who do you think he turns to? Yep, the Soviets, and the Soviets are more than welcome to help them, because remember, while we're trying to contain communism, they're trying to spread communism. So we could have avoided this whole conflict if we would have just supported Ho Chi Minh from the beginning. The 1940s come, World War II, and Ho Chi Minh's still out there. He's thinking that he wants to put communism into Vietnam, but France still owns Vietnam. So the Nazis take over France, which means they also acquire all of France's territories. But logistically, Germany cannot control the South Pacific. So they go to their ally, Japan, and tell them, you need to occupy Vietnam for us. And Japan agrees. So the Japanese aren't really making the Vietnamese do anything. And so Ho Chi Minh starts to say, well, let me just form this Vietnam Independence League, and it'll be a way for me to kind of spread knowledge about what I want to do and what communism actually is. And on August 25th, 1945, after the war is declared over in the South Pacific, Ho Chi declares Vietnam's independence. He says, we're free. Nobody owns us. But the French are not so quick to go along with that. They say, slow your roll there, Ho Chi. You are not actually free. The North, when this happened, is more supportive of Ho Chi's ideas. So that's how we end up with communism in the North and not in the South. It's not like we split it, just like we did with Korea. That's one big difference. They just happen to like the idea of communism a lot better than they did in the South. So France, remember, says, I don't think so, Ho Chi Minh. You just can't up and declare independence. That's not going to work. So France fights back, and the United States supports France for two reasons. Numero uno, we hate communism, right? We can't stand it. And number two, we are long-term allies in World War II, World War I, all the way back to the American Revolution. And our first step in this flexible response that we've talked about earlier is to send money. So if we want to help somebody, we kind of follow this pretty much today. If we want to help somebody, we don't send troops right away. We will send them money for supplies and for trading of other things that they need. 1954, the Geneva Accord is passed because France just really is not equipped to fight off Vietnam and have another war there. They just got out of World War II, and you're looking at from being in war from 1939 to 1954, and the French people aren't very happy about that. So France is out, and Vietnam can get their own independence. What we decide to do, or what kind of happens at the Geneva Accord, is we're going to split Vietnam into two separate countries, right? So just like we did with Korea, only the 38th parallel splits Korea, and the 17th parallel is going to split Vietnam. And all of a sudden, Ho Chi Minh becomes a communist leader of North Vietnam. We're totally okay with that. We're not like super happy about it, but it's not in the South, so we consider that somewhat a victory. But Ho Chi Minh is, they erupt into a civil war. He wants to spread it to the South. So in 1961, JFK sends special forces to Vietnam, not to fight, but to train, right, in quotations, we're just training these soldiers how to fight. In 1963, before his death, he escalates that number by more than 15,000, and they're training and advising, not fighting, training and advising the South Vietnamese. By the time this is over, 2.5 million men will either been enlisted or drafted. The majority of them drafted. And one big problem with fighting with the drafted military is they don't want to be there. So that's one reason why Vietnam vets are kind of scarred, as you made them go to this war area. It was a brutal war, guerrilla tactics. You use a lot of PTSD and stuff like that we're going to talk about later on. Not a very popular war at all. So France is out. The United States steps up their effort. We're going to have to do more than just send money. We handpick a leader. Diem to be the leader of the South because he's anti-communist, pro-democracy, and we guess he's like an okay guy. Turns out he's not okay. He's really kind of a jerk and not somebody you want to be around. And what Diem is having to deal with in the South is Viet Cong, right? Are communists in the South who attack the Diem government. And they're guerrilla fighters, so they're dressed in plain clothes. You don't know who's a Viet Cong and who's just a normal citizen. Sometimes, and throughout the rest of this lecture, I will call them VC. They're also sometimes called Charlie. So you want to make sure that you put like right down here, aka VC, and also Charlie. They call him Charlie when they're in Forrest Gump. If you've ever seen that, and Forrest is thinking he's actually looking for somebody named Charlie. So these Viet Cong use lots of guerrilla tactics. A very elaborate tunnel system I'm going to go over with you in the next video. Landmines were also used, which is not a new weapon. What is unique about this is they use a lot of booby traps. Now, this war is fought in a total jungle environment. Very dense jungle makes it very difficult to see. Like you just would not see a booby trap unless you were 100% looking for it. So they used, one popular one is stake pits, which are right here, where they would take pieces of bamboo and they would sharpen them till they're razor sharp, put them down in a hole, cover it up with jungle brush, and then as you're walking, because you're walking the majority of the time in Vietnam, you fall into the pit. Now, you don't die. But what you are doing is you're bleeding profusely. The only way to get out of that jungle area is by Black Hawk helicopters, which are very, very loud. If they come, it's going to draw the VC to you, so it's just a bad situation. They also use a lot of tripwires that would set off bombs, launched different types of booby traps, some involving sharp bamboo, some not. So they were pretty decisive. So we have a little bit of time left, so I'll go ahead and do the tunnel system. This is a simple tunnel system that they would have used. So you see that they are up here fighting, right? We see them. They run into this house, slip under this pot down into a trench. When we come in, it looks just like a house. And if we do happen to find this hole, they go down to even a lower tunnel place. They can breathe because there's air vents. And if they need to totally escape, they can do that by going out into the water. We don't know these tunnels are here. They're hidden. Makes them hard for us to bomb. The entrances are also very, very small, very tight. The Vietnamese people are generally a lot smaller than Americans, so we can't send our soldiers down there to do it, to clean them out, these foxholes. So we'll bomb them, we'll gas them, and try to run the VC out. This is a much more elaborate tunnel system. Let's say you're coming in from this side, so you may come in and go down. If you do not know where this stake pit is, you're probably going to get injured. You can come into this area, which is a dormitory where you would sleep on a hammock, or you can go on down, come up to a firing post, so they would fire from here and then duck back down, go down to another level where there's a first aid station that's powered by a bike, so you could recover underground. The ammunition is also stored here. There's a kitchen, so you're eating, and smoke ventilation for it. This is an interesting entrance. You could drop down if you needed to and go either way. They also have dug a well. This guy right here is ready to pop out and fight if he needs to. Very elaborate tunnel system. Took them a long time to build, but again, it's in the jungle, so we don't really see them doing it. And once you get underground, we're definitely not going to see you. This is a picture of one of the entrances, and remember I said the Vietnamese are very, very small, and they have to even put their arms straight up over the head so they can slide down there even faster. This guy is touring the tunnel system, which you can do if you go to Vietnam. Not me. I'm very claustrophobic. They've kind of carved it out so that people can fit down in there now. Ho Chi Minh does a great, great job of utilizing this tunnel system. He builds the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And if you notice, this trail starts in North Vietnam, goes down through Laos, a little bit through Cambodia, and then exits into all different points of South Vietnam. He's smart to run it through Laos and Cambodia. This part is not underground. You can see trucks moving. We can't bomb those trucks, because if we bomb them, we're declaring war on Laos, we're declaring war on Cambodia. Another smart thing he does is he doesn't have these come in right over the border. He goes in behind the front lines, so then that requires the Americans to retreat and fight him down here, which then allows him to send men over across the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone. So he was pretty smart about building this Ho Chi Minh Trail that was going to allow him to get supplies and men down to South Vietnam. So that's the first lecture. The next lecture I'll get recorded and get posted so that you guys can get it if you missed it, or if you are no longer with us and taking a long-term vacay in safe.